Hello friends of the channel. This time we're gonna do a true scale conversion from the box of start collecting black Legion. Very iconic Legion. I mean, these guys really look good. They really exemplify what is the Chaos realm in 40k, and I'm really like from all the factions from the bad guys. We're gonna see how these bits are gonna be converted into something like this that you will see in the final part of the video. And we're gonna start with different parts of this model that we have assembled. I have taken the knife out, as you guys can see, cut the leg, and this place over here, from one leg being from one model, and the other leg being from another model from this box start collecting box. And torso belongs to front and back part from the same model. I really forgot from which specific model the parts come, but as I usually like to experiment and see what kind of poses and different looking models I can get by combining different parts. What I want to show you in this video mainly is the possibilities of what you can get by just converting and cutting pieces and just experimenting using the goo for this. In this case right now, I'm going to be cutting the shoulder pad on this upper torso part because I just don't like the way it is positioned. It's gonna force me and restrict me and what kind of pose I can give to the model. So I decided to cut it very carefully, and you have to be very careful when cutting these models because they are just they don't come in parts, so you have to really be careful when cutting different parts of this model. I'm also gonna position the model, as you guys can see over here. I'm putting beads on the feet, trying to find the best pose for these models. And for this, a lot of times you gotta raise one of the legs. As you guys can see over here, I'm raising one of the legs more than the other one, and the other one I just added a 1 millimeter plastic card. The other leg is a little bit higher, and this is gonna give me a different pose that I'm trying to find for this model, something different and just following the rules that come in the box set. And I'm using wood at this point, and I am just bonding the model with the plastic card that I have put under the feet, and attaching it to the base. And as you guys can observe in the video right now, this is a very important part because this is what's going to give you the final pose. You have to be very, very careful in this part of the building process. I like putting my model in the base first. I don't like basing my models first and then putting the model, because if you do that, then I think you're restricting yourself to the pose that the model can have at the end. In this case, I'm gonna have to attach that knife that I was forced to take out in order to attach the leg that it was hard to fit with that knife on. So I'm gonna have to attach the knife now that the leg is fully attached to the upper torso of the model. And there you go, being very careful. I'm just gonna put the knife back. This is an arm that I had from another model from the same box set. I have filled it with plastic goo, and also with the glue, the Tamiya extra thin plastic glue and the goo, in order to create a very strong bond. And very carefully, we're gonna just put some pressure and after a few minutes, it's gonna start getting very well attached to the upper torso. And in this case, I was left, once I cut the the arm, I was left with this arm that I'm gonna be attaching to this shoulder pad. But as you guys can see, there's a gap over there that I'm gonna have to fill with plastic goo, with the Tamiya extra thin plastic goo. I'm gonna fill that hole and then attach it to the other arm. And very carefully, just do the same thing that you did on the other side, which is just attach the arm, making sure that the goo fills everything without overflowing and just coming out on the side of the model. You have to be careful in the amount of goo that you use for this. Too much, it can overflow, and too little, it won't attach that well. Just be careful. And the model is taking the shape that I originally have in my mind. You have to have in your mind kind of like what kind of pose you want on these models. And right now I'm applying the goo in the neck. I always do that. And I'm gonna put a small spacer because I want to raise the head. In this case, I want to raise the head so I can get a more imposing looking Space Marine. And this is the head that I have picked. It comes from the Age of Sigmar, Slave of Darkness, I think they're called. And I think it's excellent. I think it fits perfectly with this model. I'm gonna just sand a little bit so it kind of gives me like a small flat surface. Otherwise, it won't be able to attach that well to the spacer that I have placed in the hole where the neck is supposed to go. And I have also added plastic goo, as you guys can see. And right now you see it's gonna go like that. And very carefully, you're gonna place the head so you achieve the higher neck that is gonna give your model a more imposing, more aesthetic, better looking model, in my opinion. Just do it very carefully, and just make sure that you achieve the correct angle. This is the good thing about working with Tamiya extra thin goo and glue, that you are able to just play around until you get the pose that you're looking for. This will be very hard if you work with plastic cement or super glue. And very carefully just play around like I'm doing right now here. I'm just trying to decide exactly the angle that I'm looking for the pose to make sense. Now the back part comes from another model, and it's not gonna fit in the square back part. You guys can see that small nipple that you see that where the backpack is supposed to go. So I'm gonna have just to play around, maybe make the hole in the backpack a little bit bigger. And of course, I'm gonna also use the plastic goo in this case in order for me to get a better bond between the backpack and the upper torso, the torso of the model. And being very careful, I think it's looking good. And this is the way it's looking, the model so far. I think there is a gap just next to the knife, and I'm thinking about putting something there. Let me see. I decided to put a grenade. I was thinking maybe a pouch, but I think a grenade is gonna be the most logical thing to put in that hole that you see over there next to the knife. So far, I'm happy with the angle. I think the model is coming out good. Many parts from different sets mostly from the start collecting Black Legion models. And there we go. I'm putting right now the grenade, and the next thing that I'm gonna be doing is just slowly adding sand to the base. As you guys can see, I first like putting the model in the base, and only then I like adding the sand to the base. We're gonna do some more, and the way I do it, I like to use Tamiya extra think plastic glue, and then use the sand. You can use normal school glue for this, but in this case I'm gonna be adding also a few skulls. I really like my bases to be very grimy and dark. You know, I'm not too fond of like flowers and green grass, I'm sorry, and stuff like that. So I like to just put skulls, maybe some debris, battlefield. Really like the vibe of the model to be very creamy and dark. And so far it's looking good. I'm very happy with the outcome. What do you guys think? We're gonna wait for it to dry a little bit. And at this point, after it dry a little bit, maybe like 10-15 minutes, I'm gonna start like putting a coat of primer, Vallejo primer, using just a brush. I mean, you can use a spray also, because that's nothing wrong with that. You can use a airbrush, but in this case, I'm just gonna be using a brush to apply the primer. Make sure the primer goes good in all the recesses, because we want those recesses to be very, very dark. And this is going to be the final result. This is the way it looks after I have applied the primer on this model. So far, very happy with the model. And you have to be careful when you handle this model. You have to remember that the glue, the Tamiya plastic glue, it doesn't dry that fast. So be very careful when you handle the model. And yeah, I'm very happy with the way it looks. Now I'm gonna grab this blue gray from Vallejo and just apply what I call kind of like a wet, semi-dry brush. As you guys can see, pay very attention the way I do it. This is not really like a dry brush. It is like a kind of like painting the model, but making sure that the recesses and the cracks of the model remain dark. That is very, very important, that the cracks in the model remain dark as much possible. So be very careful when you apply the paint. In this case, it is wet. As I said before, I don't call this thing the way I'm doing it right now dry brushing. I think it's a kind of like a painting, but just making sure that you use the side of the brush and not the tips, because if you do that, the paint will go into the recesses, and you don't want that. And the reason you do this is because you want to like leave the highlights and the dark parts for the contrast of the model. At least that's the way I do it. But if you want to like do it in a different way, or if you have your own method, I mean, you're welcome to do whatever you want in your model. Also, we're gonna do the upper part of the model. Same thing, being very careful, leaving some areas very dark and applying more paint in some other areas. Always looking to be very careful and not getting paint into the cracks. Especially around the head. The head is such a, the helmet, the head is such a very important part of the model, because it's gonna be the focus part of your model. Even when you get the pose, we're trying to get the pose, the way and the direction where the head is looking, it is very, very important for the final way the model is gonna look. We're gonna do the same thing in the back part. Um, the backpack is full of details, and you guys can see that using this method it really takes um, the details to a new level, so you can see the details right away. So if you decide to paint with regular paints or use contrast paint or use washes or inks, I mean, it's gonna really pop up when you use any type of paint. You can also use different types of gray. You can use darker gray if that's what you're looking for, or a lighter gray paint. And so far, this is the way the final model looks once it's been applied with this semi-dry brush, semi-wet dry brush. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply a wash of black ink, maybe like 1 drop of black ink for maybe 5 or 6 drops of water. So it's gonna be kind of dark, and make sure that the black wash, it really goes into the recesses and all the cracks. It's gonna also soften the paint that we apply. And once it is dry, very important, wait until it's dry. Then we're gonna apply this time a very soft paint layer, as you guys can see right now in the video, but this time of white paint. You can use any type of white paint, any type that makes you feel comfortable. In this case, I'm using Vallejo, but any white paint will do it. If you want to achieve a more grimy and dark look in the model, you can also use maybe like a yellow, or maybe like a lighter gray instead of white. And be very careful, just pay attention the way I'm just like kind of like tracing, just passing softly with the side of the brush, making sure that none of the white paint goes into any of the cracks. Just the very upper part of the high parts of the model. We're gonna do the weapon, also the backpack of the model, same thing. I wouldn't call this tool a dry brush tool. It's kind of like a painting the model. Again, I'm explaining that it's not really dry brushing. It's more like applying a very fine coat of paint on top of the model. And now this is the way it looks with the coat. And what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna apply some a black wash, final black wash, very soft. And now after that it's dry, after it has dry, we're gonna compare these guys with the models that you see right now in front of you, which is the Primaris. In this case, we're comparing with the Mark 6 from the Age of Darkness set from the Horus Heresy. And this is the way it's gonna fare with a Mark 3 Space Marine. You guys can see the size comparison. And very happy with the model, guys. As you guys can see, and you guys can observe in the building process, you can play around with different parts in from the cows to build these models. In this case, most of the parts that I use for building this model comes from the Star Collecting Black Legion box from GW. But the results can be very unique, given your army or your special character, a very different look than the rest of the models. I haven't specified the specific parts that I have used, but you can play around, because what I like to do is just chopping and cutting the models and seeing and experimenting what model fits with another model. And this is the base tool. I want to you guys take a close look. And once the model is dry, and I have applied a very light dry brush, very soft dry brush, you can see the effect of the dry brush and the different parts in the model. Remember that they use plastic hard on the feet of the model, under the feet, just to achieve the desired position and pose in the model. Remember guys, you can play around, experiment, and what makes this possible is using a Tamiya extra thin plastic glue. It's very hard to do this job if you're using super glue, because it will just dry very fast. Using the glue and the extra thin plastic cement from Tamiya gives you enough time to play around, to fill cracks, and to acquire the flexibility to build the model. Very happy with the model, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell. I'm gonna put this model on eBay. If anybody's interested, you can support the channel that way too. Ring the bell so you will receive notifications when we make new videos. This model is ready to be painted. If you have any questions, comments, put it in the comment section. Help us the channel to grow. You can share this channel and like the video. And if you have any questions or comments, you can let me know in the comment section. Thank you for your time, guys, and we're gonna see each other in the next video. Bye bye.